The alien queen gave him a test. He swept then the battlefield. The station drifted above a dead planet like a silent crown. Its metal walls were old, marked by burns and cracks from many wars. Inside, long halls echoed with the sound of alien steps, claws, and heavy armor. Humans were rare here. When they appeared, they walked with heads low and hands empty. Evan was one of them. He stood at the edge of the great hall, thin, tired, and wearing a simple gray suit given to labor workers. Chains were not needed. Humans had learned not to run. Around him, tall guards watched with cold eyes. Their armor glowed faintly, and their weapons hummed with power. At the far end of the hall sat the alien queen. She was tall even while seated, her skin smooth and dark like polished stone. A long crown of living metal curved behind her head. Her eyes were calm, ancient, and sharp. She had ruled this station for many cycles. Many species feared her. Some respected her. None questioned her will. Evan had never expected to stand before her. A translator orb floated near his shoulder, ready to turn alien sound into simple human words. His heart beat fast, but his face stayed still. He knew that fear pleased no one here. The queen studied him in silence. The hall grew quiet. Even the guards stopped shifting their weight. "This human is small," one alien noble said softly from the side. "Why bring him here?" The queen raised one hand. Silence returned. She finally spoke, her voice slow and deep, carried by the translator. "Human," she said, "you have lived on this station for 3 cycles. You have not fought, you have not begged, you have not died." Evan swallowed. "I work," he said simply. A low sound passed through the hall. Some aliens laughed, others looked curious. "Yes," the queen said. "You work. Today I give you a task." The guards moved aside. A small cleaning tool floated forward, old and worn. It landed at Evan's feet. "You will clean the East Service Hall," the queen said. Evan looked up for the first time. Confusion crossed his face. "Clean?" he asked. The queen's eyes did not change. "Yes, you will sweep the floor, remove dust, remove waste, restore order." More laughter rose from the watching aliens. "That hall has been closed for years," one said. "It is useless." "Humans are fit for dirt," another added. Evan did not answer them. He picked up the tool. It was heavier than it looked. The handle was cracked and the power cell flickered weakly. "I will do it," Evan said. The queen leaned back slightly. "If you finish before the cycle ends, return. If you fail, do not." The meaning was clear. Failure meant death or worse. Guards escorted Evan away. The great doors closed behind him, sealing the Hall of Judgment. The East Service Hall lay deep inside the station. It was old, older than most living beings aboard. Lights flickered as Evan entered. Dust floated in the air. The floor was layered with grime, broken parts, and dried stains that time had not erased. Evan stood still for a moment. He had cleaned many places before. Storage rooms, prison cells, waste tunnels, but this place felt different, heavy. Quiet in a way that made the skin crawl. He took a slow breath and began. The tool hummed weakly as he pushed it across the floor. Dust lifted and settled again. Some areas were so dirty that the tool barely worked. Evan adjusted his grip, changing the angle, using short movements instead of long ones. As he worked, he noticed things others had ignored. Scratches on the walls that were not from age but from claws. Burn marks hidden under layers of dirt. A broken control panel half buried under debris. This hall had once been important. He reached the panel and wiped it clean. The screen flickered to life for a second, then died again. Evan frowned. He knelt down and removed the cover with his fingers. Inside, wires were loose, cut in clean lines. Sabotage. Evan did not know why, but he felt that leaving it broken was wrong. He searched the nearby trash piles and found spare wire, bent but usable. Slowly, carefully, he reconnected what he could. The panel came back to life, dim but working. Lights along the hall brightened slightly. Evan froze. Had he done something forbidden? Nothing happened. No alarms, no guards. He returned to sweeping. Hours passed. His arms ached. Sweat soaked his clothes. He rested only when his hands shook too much to hold the tool steady. Each time he forced himself to stand again. As the floor cleared, shapes became visible, symbols carved into the metal, old banners torn and faded. This hall had once been a path of honor, not waste. Near the far end, Evan found something unexpected. A small service drone lay broken on its side, one limb twisted. Its eye light blinked weakly. It was still active. Most would ignore it. Drones were cheap. Broken ones were left to decay. Evan knelt beside it. "Can you move?" he asked softly, knowing it might not understand. The drone made a faint clicking sound. Evan examined the damage. One joint was jammed with debris. He used the end of the cleaning tool to pry it free. The limb shifted back into place with a soft snap. The drone's light brightened. It slowly rose, unsteady but functional. Evan smiled without thinking. "Good," he said. "Stay out of the way." The drone hovered near the wall, watching him. High above, unseen by Evan, the Queen watched through hidden sensors. She saw him repair instead of destroy. She saw him notice details others ignored. She said nothing. By the time the cycle neared its end, the hall looked different. Not perfect, but clean. Open. Alive again. Evan stood at the entrance, breathing hard. His body screamed for rest. His hands were raw, but he turned and walked back toward the throne hall. Guards stopped him at the door. "You finished?" one asked. "Yes," Evan said. The guard scanned him, then the hall feed. Its eyes narrowed slightly. "You may enter." The great doors opened once more. The watching aliens fell quiet as Evan walked forward, tools still in hand. Dirt marked his clothes. His face was pale, but his back was straight. The Queen looked at him for a long moment. "The hall is clean," she said. "Yes," Evan replied. "You repaired systems without being ordered," she said. "Yes." "You aided a drone," she said. "Yes." "Why?" the Queen asked. Evan thought for a moment. He chose his words carefully. "Because it was broken," he said, "and because leaving it broken would make more work later." A ripple of sound moved through the hall. Not laughter this time, something closer to interest. The Queen leaned forward. "You were given a task meant to humble you," she said. "Yet you acted as if the space mattered." Evan met her gaze, his fear finally slipping through. "Everything matters," he said quietly. "Even floors." Silence followed. The Queen rose from her throne. Many aliens stepped back in shock. She walked down the steps until she stood before Evan. She was taller than him by far, her presence heavy like gravity itself. "You passed the first test," she said. Evan's eyes widened slightly. "There will be another," the Queen continued. "This one will not involve a tool." Guards moved forward again. "Take him to the lower decks," she ordered. A sharp intake of breath spread through the hall. Even hardened warriors looked uneasy. "The lower decks," one whispered. "No one returns from there." Evan did not resist as the guards took his arms. He only looked back once toward the Queen. "Why me?" he asked. The Queen's eyes held something new, not kindness, not cruelty. Curiosity. "Because," she said, "I wish to see what humans do when no one is watching." The doors closed behind him as he was led away, deeper into the station, toward darkness no human had ever been sent to clean. And for the first time in many cycles, the alien Queen wondered if she had chosen wisely. The lower decks of the station smelled of rust, oil, and something worse, decay. The air was thick, making Evan cough as he stepped down the narrow stairwell. Darkness clung to every corner and the lights that remained flickered weakly, giving strange shadows that danced on the walls. The station groaned around him like it was alive and unhappy. The guards did not speak. They walked slowly, watching him but not helping. Occasionally, one would glance at the walls, as if expecting something to jump out. Most of the aliens who served the Queen avoided these decks. This place was for failed machinery, broken creatures, and the forgotten. Evan followed quietly. He had learned long ago that noise drew attention. Even a footstep could be fatal in the wrong place. When they reached the first supply zone, the guards stopped. "This is your work area," one said, pointing to a huge room filled with broken storage crates, shattered tools, and alien corpses half buried in dust. "Fix what can be fixed. Remove what must be removed. You have one cycle." Evan looked around. He had no tools, no weapons, nothing but his hands and the lessons of patience. He bent down and picked up a broken crate. It was heavy, made of alien metal that cut his fingers. He dragged it to the corner. There was a strange pride in making the space neat, even though he did not know why neatness would matter. He began sweeping with a piece of broken metal he found. It was crude, but it worked. Dust rose in clouds, coating his face, clothes, and hair. Evan coughed but kept going. Hours passed. He cleaned, repaired, and rearranged as best he could. He found broken cables and rewired some of them to make old lights flicker back on. He moved fallen panels, patched small holes, and even managed to fix a damaged gravity stabilizer. It shook weakly, but it worked. While working, he heard a sound, a faint, wet groan from the shadows. He froze. Slowly, he moved toward the noise. There in a corner was a small creature, mangled, its alien skin torn, its breathing shallow. Most humans would have stepped back, perhaps even screamed. Evan knelt and examined it. "Can you move?" he whispered. The creature blinked weakly. Its eyes were black, glossy, filled with pain. Evan had no medicine, no tools to properly heal it, but he did what he could. He used pieces of torn fabric from a crate to bind its wounds and lifted it to a safer spot. The groaning slowed. The creature looked at him, uncomprehending but alive. Evan straightened, wiping sweat from his brow. He worked all day, repairing systems, moving debris, and helping creatures he found injured or trapped. The lower decks were not just dirty, they were dangerous. Pipes could burst without warning, broken wires sparked randomly, and strange alien machines groaned as if threatening to collapse. He learned quickly to watch, listen, and plan every movement. By the end of the cycle, most of the supply zone was functional again. Lights flickered reliably. The broken systems hummed quietly. The injured creature still rested, breathing shallow but alive. Evan stood in the middle of the room, exhausted, his hands cut and bruised, his clothes soaked in sweat and grime. It was then that he noticed another human, or at least another prisoner, sitting slumped against the wall. The man looked shocked and fearful. You're still alive," he stammered. Evan shook his head. "I don't know if that matters," he said. He did not smile, he did not boast. Survival was simple to him. It was work, focus, and patience. Reports of Evan's survival and efficiency reached the Queen. She did not speak, but her advisors grew restless. "Stop the test," they demanded. "No human can survive the lower decks for more than a single cycle." The Queen's response was calm. "I wish to see how he behaves under pressure." Later, as Evan arranged the last of the repaired machinery, an alarm echoed across the lower decks. Not a warning, but a call. Something new was coming. Outside the walls, alien shapes moved. Ships were approaching. Not patrols, but a small attack force, likely sent to test the station's defenses. Evan looked at the lights, the repaired panels, and the creatures he had saved. He understood immediately. The test had changed. It was no longer about cleaning. It was about preparation, endurance, and seeing if he could act under life-threatening conditions without weapons. The guards returned, looking anxious. "The Queen's orders," one said. "You will assist with the skirmish, not as a fighter, as support. Follow instructions." Evan nodded. He had no choice but to obey, but he felt something unfamiliar, excitement. Not fear, but a challenge that his mind could solve. As the first enemy ships arrived, Evan studied the lower deck's layout. He moved quickly, setting machines, shifting debris to create paths, and using his knowledge of the terrain to warn the stationed aliens where danger would strike. Small victories came first. An alien worker avoided a falling beam because Evan had adjusted a support just before it collapsed. Another ship missed a weak point because Evan repaired the targeting override on a defense turret. By the end of the cycle, chaos had been minimized. Damage was reduced. No lives were lost, except for those the enemy managed to take before Evan could act. But in the report, the Queen saw the difference. The human had not panicked. The human had not run. The human had worked. She leaned back in her throne, her eyes narrowed in quiet consideration. In the lower decks, Evan paused, exhausted, leaning against a wall. He watched the repaired machines glow dimly, the injured creature resting safely, and the human prisoner who had been too afraid to move now standing cautiously nearby. For the first time, Evan realized the Queen's test was not just about obedience or survival. It was about seeing a human mind under pressure, a human will among creatures who relied on strength and fear. And he understood, silently, that this was only the beginning. The next cycle promised more danger. The battlefield was coming. Evan straightened, wiped the sweat from his eyes, and moved toward the deeper corridors of the lower decks. Whatever came next, he would be ready. The shadows seemed to shift as if watching him. The station groaned in approval or perhaps warning. Evan did not flinch. He had work to do. The battle began before Evan fully understood what was happening. From the lower decks, alarms blared, echoing through the station's corridors. Alien soldiers rushed past him, some carrying weapons, others dragging injured comrades. Sparks flew from damaged panels, and the air was thick with smoke and the faint metallic scent of blood. Evan had no weapon, none at all. The guards had told him he was not a fighter, only support. And yet, as he watched the chaos unfold, he realized that the flow of battle depended on small things, and small things could be changed by someone willing to think quickly. The enemy was unlike anything Evan had seen before. Tall, armored beings with multiple arms and glowing eyes pushed forward with precise coordination. They fired strange energy beams that disintegrated walls and machinery alike. Their ships hovered near the station, blasting turrets and leaving trails of destruction. Evan moved swiftly. First, he cleared fallen beams and debris that blocked hallways. Soldiers, both alien and human, stumbled and fell because of broken pathways. Evan directed them to safer paths he had cleared, pointing and signaling with hand movements he knew would be understood. A flick of his wrist here, a shout there, and dozens of troops avoided deadly traps. He reached a collapsed corridor where a group of soldiers was pinned. Pipes had fallen and fire spread quickly along the metal. Evan grabbed a loose cable and pulled it to create a makeshift pulley. With careful effort, he lifted the piping enough for the soldiers to crawl through. "Thanks," one yelled, an alien with scarred blue skin. Evan only nodded. Words were unnecessary. Survival required action, not speech. As he moved from corridor to corridor, he noticed patterns in the enemy's attack. Their movements were fast, but they repeated sequences, predictable sequences. By adjusting defenses and moving troops ahead of time, Evan minimized losses. A turret that had been fixed in the lower deck corridor fired at the perfect moment, catching several attackers off guard. During a lull, Evan found a small alien named Rel trapped under a fallen mech. Rel had once mocked humans and refused any help from them. Now, with sparks flying and the mech crushing his leg, he had no choice. Evan lifted the metal with all his strength, freeing Rel. "Why are you helping me?" Rel gasped. "Because it needs to be done," Evan said simply. "Survive, that's the first rule." Rel stared, then nodded. Together, they moved to assist soldiers further down the corridor. Evan began coordinating groups, using hand signals, debris, and machines he had repaired to slow the enemy. Without firing a shot himself, he controlled the battlefield's flow. The Queen's sensors observed silently. She saw the human redirecting the fight without weapons, without authority, and without fear. Even the most skeptical advisors began to whisper. Suddenly, a large enemy unit burst through a wall. Its energy cannon tore apart the floor near Evan, sending sparks and debris everywhere. Soldiers scattered, but Evan calculated the timing. He pushed Rel and another injured soldier into a side hall, then triggered a repaired door mechanism to block the incoming unit temporarily. The alien machine paused, scanning, confused by the sudden barrier. Evan and Rel ran to a safer corridor as it recalibrated. "You are different," Rel muttered. Evan ignored the compliment. There was no time. Hours passed like this. Small actions, quick decisions, and careful movement saved lives and equipment. Every corridor Evan cleared, every panel he repaired, every fallen soldier he pulled to safety added weight to the Queen's assessment. Humans were underestimated. Too often, aliens relied on brute strength or fear. Evan relied on thought. In the central control room, an alien commander named Cora noticed his influence. She was skeptical at first, but when she saw soldiers surviving attacks they should have died in, she began to follow his signals. Together they moved through the chaos like water flowing around rocks, guiding troops, repairing defenses, and setting small traps that disrupted the enemy. "Why are you helping humans?" Cora finally asked during a brief pause. "Because they need it," Evan said simply. "Even if they don't know it yet." By the time reinforcements arrived for the enemy, Evan had changed the battle. What had been a complete rout was now a strategic stalemate. Enemy forces pulled back, confused and frustrated. The Queen observed quietly, her eyes narrowed in thought. Then she sent her voice through the station's channels. "Human," she said, "why do you aid those who once crushed your kind?" Evan paused, looking at the soldiers around him. Aliens he had never met, humans who had never trusted him, and wounded creatures who had no reason to survive. "Because," he said quietly, "no one wins by watching others fail, and no one survives alone." The Queen did not respond immediately. Outside, the remaining enemy forces hovered, ready to strike again. Evan looked at the battlefield, the corridors he had cleared, and the soldiers he had saved. For the first time, he understood what the Queen's test truly was. It was not about strength. It was about humanity, strategy, and the ability to act when everyone expected you to fail. The battle continued, but the tide had shifted. Evan, the human with no weapons, had swept the battlefield in his own way, saving lives and proving that intelligence and courage could change the course of war. And the Queen watched, silently calculating what this meant for the future of humans under her rule. Evan did not know what awaited him next, only that the battlefield was not the end, but a beginning. The Queen's voice echoed through the station, calm but commanding, as Evan stood in the quiet aftermath of the battle. Smoke lingered in the halls, machines sputtered, and injured soldiers were being tended to by medics. For a moment, he allowed himself to catch his breath. "You have survived more than expected," the Queen said. Her presence filled the room, taller than any human could imagine. "But now comes the true trial." Evan looked up at her. His body ached from days of continuous work, running through collapsing corridors, lifting debris and saving lives. His hands were scarred and blistered, his uniform stained with sweat, grime, and blood. Yet he stood straight, as he had throughout every challenge. "You will make a choice," she continued. "You may leave this station and live as you wish, or you may stay and lead the defense of the station against the enemy forces returning in greater numbers. Many will die if you remain. You may not survive." Evan studied her face. Most humans would have chosen safety, but he had learned something in the lower decks, among broken machinery and injured soldiers. The measure of a human was not in running from danger, but in acting when survival was uncertain and hope seemed small. "I will stay," he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried determination. The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly, a hint of curiosity entering her gaze. "Very well, then lead as you see fit. Use the resources and beings at your disposal. Do not fail." Evan wasted no time. He surveyed the station and its inhabitants, humans, aliens, and creatures who had survived alongside him. He considered the damaged machinery he had repaired, the corridors he had cleared, and the patterns of enemy attacks he had observed. Every detail mattered. Every small improvement could save lives. He began organizing defenses. Broken corridors became traps. Damaged panels were turned into barriers or weapons. Simple devices were repurposed to amplify existing turrets, and small squads of soldiers were positioned strategically, guided by Evan's signals and understanding of the terrain. Rel, the alien he had saved, followed him closely, assisting with coordination. "You think faster than anyone I've seen," Rel admitted. "I doubted humans, but I do not act for pride," Evan replied. "I act for results." The enemy returned, larger and more coordinated. Their ships fired relentlessly, and their troops landed in waves, confident they could overwhelm the station. But Evan had prepared for every movement he could predict. Small traps delayed their advance. Repaired turrets caught attackers off guard. Corridors that had been debris-filled were now clear paths for allies to maneuver safely. As the fight continued, Evan noticed weaknesses in the enemy's coordination. He used these openings to guide groups of soldiers through ambush points, minimizing losses and maximizing efficiency. Every action he took shifted the battle, slowly turning chaos into order. Then, a massive enemy strike broke through one of the station's primary defenses. A squad of soldiers was trapped, their retreat cut off. Without hesitation, Evan ran into the fray. He lifted debris, redirected energy shields, and pulled injured beings to safety, one after another. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the air filled with the stench of scorched metal. The Queen watched, her expression unreadable. She saw a human taking risks no one else would, guiding allies with intelligence, courage, and compassion. It was not brute strength that kept the station alive. It was Evan's mind, his ability to act when others hesitated, and his refusal to abandon anyone. Hours passed. Slowly, the enemy was repelled. The station had taken damage, but the majority of its inhabitants survived. Evan himself was injured, scorched and cut, but he refused to leave the field until he had ensured the safety of all he could. Finally, when the enemy withdrew, exhausted and frustrated, silence fell. Medics attended to the wounded, and the remaining soldiers regrouped. The Queen entered the central hall, her presence commanding the attention of every being on the station. She stopped before Evan, kneeling slightly, a gesture that shocked every alien present. "You have done what no human should have been able to accomplish," she said. "You have led, you have saved lives. You have proven that humanity is capable of more than I expected." Evan, exhausted, looked at her without pride or arrogance. "I did what needed to be done. That is all." The Queen's gaze softened slightly. "Your test is complete. But know this, the galaxy is watching. Many will see what you have done today, and they will remember." Evan nodded. He did not ask for praise, nor did he seek reward. The station was safe. The people were alive. And for the first time, humans had been seen not as weak laborers or prisoners, but as beings capable of leadership, strategy, and courage. As he was led to the medbay for treatment, Evan realized that this trial had changed more than him. It had changed the way humans were seen among the stars. And though the battle was won, he knew it was only the beginning of what humans could achieve when they refused to be underestimated. The station was quiet now. Smoke and fire had faded, leaving only the hum of repaired machinery and the chatter of soldiers tending to the wounded. Humans moved freely among aliens for the first time, their chains removed, their presence no longer a mark of shame. Evan walked slowly through the halls, his body sore and bruised, but his mind alert and clear. The Queen had summoned a gathering in the main hall. Aliens of many species filled the space, watching with curiosity and respect as humans entered. For cycles, humans had been seen as weak, insignificant, and unworthy. Today, that perception had changed. Evan stood at the center, the Queen beside him. Her crown of living metal glimmered and her eyes held a strange mixture of pride and calculation. She addressed the assembly. "Today," she said, "you have witnessed what a human is capable of, not with weapons, not with sheer force, but with intelligence, courage, and determination. Humans have proven themselves as allies, leaders, and protectors." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some aliens looked uneasy, others impressed. Many had never seen such calm in the face of danger, such decisiveness without fear. Evan said nothing. He did not need to. His actions had already spoken louder than words. Instead, he observed the people around him. The humans no longer trembling, the aliens learning to respect them, and the queen whose challenge had revealed strength few could imagine. The queen turned to him. "Evan," she said, "you may choose your reward. Titles, lands, power among the stars, anything." Evan shook his head. "I want nothing," he said simply. "Humans should be free to decide their own path, not to rule, not to conquer, just to live and grow among others without fear." The queen studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "So it shall be. Humans will have a place here, equal among the races. You have earned their respect, and more importantly, you have earned the right to shape your own destiny." For the first time, Evan felt a deep sense of calm. The station, once a place of fear and oppression, was now a symbol of possibility. Humans and aliens moved together, rebuilding what had been damaged, learning from one another and planning for the future. Rel, the alien he had saved, approached him. "I doubted you," Rel admitted. "But now I see humans are not weak. They think differently. They act when others hesitate. They can change the outcome of any battle." Evan nodded. "We survive because we act. That is all." The queen placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. "Your work here is not finished," she said, "but the path of humans among the stars has begun. You will walk it as a witness, a guide, and a reminder of what is possible." Evan walked through the same hall he had once swept, now filled with beings working together. The air smelled of oil, metal, and fresh hope. For the first time, humans were not prisoners. They were partners, builders, and watchers of peace. And as he looked out of the station's great windows at the stars beyond, Evan knew this was only the beginning. Humanity's rise had begun, not with conquest but with courage, thought, and the simple choice to act when it mattered most. The queen watched him from her throne, silent, knowing she had witnessed something extraordinary. The galaxy would remember. Evan smiled faintly, knowing that the floor he had once swept and the battlefield he had navigated were not separate challenges. They were the same test. A test of patience, courage, and the quiet strength that lay within every human. The stars awaited, and humanity would answer the call.